this is Sophia Smallstorm. I'm here with one of my favorite hosts. So Mike, my favorite radio host, is here to talk about his hypnotherapy work. Specifically, we're going to start with this subject of past life regression, which is very interesting and to some people strikes them as quite dubious. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Sophia. That was a very nice introduction.
It was jumbled. I'll edit it, clean it up a little bit. But so you're the sage of past lives.
Well, I'm the sage of Quay, but I don't know if I've achieved sage of past lives status yet. So I'm still working on it, I think. But I do a lot of that work, and I've been in practice, Sophia, for over 8 years now.
So, Mike, what got you into this hypnotherapy thing?
Well, what happened was back in 2009, I was looking for books on near-death experience. I was always fascinated by NDEs. And so I was on Amazon looking for, books on NDEs, and Amazon said, hey, you might like this book. And so I took a look at it, and it was a book by Michael Newton, who I had no idea who he was. And the book is called or titled Memories of the Afterlife. And so it was a pre-order because the book wasn't ready yet. And so 2 or 3 weeks later, I received the book. And I think it was 32 case studies from hypnotherapists that do spiritual regression, past life regression. And I read the whole book in a matter of 2 or 3 nights. I was just fascinated by it. I knew what reincarnation was, but I just didn't have any thoughts or ideas about past life regression from the standpoint of hypnosis. So the book fascinated me so much that I went to seek out training, how to become a hypnotherapist, and then how to get trained in past life regression and between lives regression. And so in early 2010, I took the course, and I actually co-instruct now with my very good friend, Bryn Blankenship, and it's her center out in Wilmington, North Carolina. But that's where I went originally. I drove from Raleigh out to the coast, Wilmington, North Carolina, 2 hours, to have my own session. That's how much the book fascinated me. So I did a past life regression on a Thursday, stayed over in Wilmington, and then Friday I had my Life Between Lives session. And it was so remarkable, the experience that I had, that when I left Friday, going back to Raleigh, I remember driving home and thinking to myself, I have to do this work. And so I seeked out the training. Bryn happened to be doing the training, as we still do. I took the course. I think it was in February of 2010. And then I certified as a hypnotherapist and went back for another course to certify in past life regression. And I think that certification was back in around the May or June 2010 timeframe. So it's been 8 years that I've been practicing, and probably I would say 50% of my practice has to do with spiritual regression.
Mike, what is a between lives regression? That's kind of confusing to me.
Okay, so a past life regression is when you go back to a previous life, and the session is really focused on that experience. What was that past life about? What are the lessons from that past life? Those lessons will help you to better navigate your current life situations. Because what happens is your guides, your teachers, they take you back to a life that helps you to better understand your current life. That's essentially how it works in a nutshell. A between lives is when we do a session and you have to be in very, very deep theta state. As with past lives also, very deep theta state. We take you into the spirit world. So the session is not focused on a past life. The session is focused on your existence in between lives, in between incarnations, in the spirit world. So when we take a client into the spirit world, they'll meet their soul groups. They'll definitely be there with their guide. But the most important aspect of a between lives regression is when the client meets with their council of elders. And the council of elders are beings who are very, very wise. They are in the hierarchy within the spirit world, above teachers and guides. And typically when a soul comes before the council, there are maybe 5 to 7 elders that are there. And there's one elder that will be the spokesperson. And during that session, the client can get a tremendous amount of insight with regard to their soul's development. So where their soul is at as far as the developmental process, because our souls are going through a process of developing. We're developing our knowledge, we're developing our wisdom, and we're developing our capacity for unconditional love. Those are the 3 learning processes that I talk about. And when you're with that council, they will explain why various people are in your life. So as an example, why is my wife in my life? Or why is my daughter? What role does she play? You can bring in good friends. You can bring in adversaries. Why is this person such a problem in my life? And the council will review what the dynamic is, what the interaction is, why it's there. And it's all about lessons. It really is.
Okay, Mike, I have to stop you because you sailed through a bunch of stuff there. Let's go through the brainwaves first, because I found this very interesting. And I'm going to link to Mike's website on this, and he has a further link to a site called mindvalley.com, and it explains the different brainwaves. And I'm sure there are other places you can find this information, but I thought this was a good summary. And I'll just go through it. Beta waves are waking consciousness and reasoning brainwaves, and they are 14 to 40 hertz. Hertz are cycles per second. So that's the brainwave associated with normal thinking, heightened alertness, logic, critical reasoning. And those are the brainwaves you use to function throughout the day. And this website here says they also can translate into stress, anxiety, and restlessness. And I would say that this has to do with the flip over from parasympathetic into sympathetic nervous system. That beta is your sympathetic nervous system brainwave, right, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. So then you go into something called alpha, which is 7.5 to 14 hertz. It's underneath beta, and that's the deep relaxation wave. And it says they're present when the eyes are closed, when you're daydreaming or in light meditation. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, we go in and out of alpha all day long. So the one thing I always express to my clients, Sophia, is that when we talk about beta, we're not always in beta during the day, right? So you fluctuate in and out, and you're fluctuating really between beta and alpha during the course of the day. So as an example, you would be in alpha state, as you mentioned, if you have your eyes closed and you're meditating, if you're daydreaming, if you're on the highway and you're driving and you're on autopilot and you don't remember driving the last mile or so, that's an alpha state. If you're in the movie theater, and let's just say it's a very popular movie, so there's lots of people, let's say there's 300 people in the movie theater, and as soon as the movie starts, you become very focused with what's going on the screen. That focus, that concentration is you're dropping into an alpha state. And what's happening is you are not even paying attention to the fact that there are 299 other people in the movie theater. It's just you and what's happening on the screen. So we go in and out of various brainwave functions all day long. So alpha is that state where it's a very light trance state, and we're in and out all day long, all the time.
Okay, so beneath alpha is theta. That's what you were talking about when you do the regressions. You go into theta, and that's 4 hertz to 7.5 hertz, and it's called the light meditation and sleeping wave. So these brainwaves are present during light sleep, and when we have those rapid eye movement dreams, the REM dreams. So why don't you explain that a little more then to us?
Well, theta is a very, very important brainwave state in hypnosis. So you really want to get your clients into a theta state. You can get work done from a hypnosis perspective in alpha. Alpha is a light trance state. But you're going to have to do more sessions if your client can only get into an alpha state. Most clients, however, can get into a theta. And when you want to do very deep levels of work in hypnosis, I always explain to my clients The deeper, the better. The theta state is prime for being able to resolve conflict that in your waking state that you're unaware of. In other words, people might have certain behaviors or reactions and they don't really understand why they behave and react the way they do. Well, you get your client into a theta state, into hypnosis, and you're going to begin to start to unravel why that behavior or those reactions exist. Theta, deep theta, is very, very important and where your client needs to be if you're going to do a past life regression. Very deep. And also with between lives. Between lives, you have to be in a very, very deep theta state.
So deep would mean more at the 4 or 5 hertz point.
Yes.
Okay. It says also here that your mind's most deep-seated programs are at theta, and it is where you experience vivid visualizations, great inspiration, profound creativity, and exceptional insight.
Yes. That's why when you get your client into a very deep theta state, when they have a past life regression as an example, Sophia, many clients will have extraordinary visuals and imagery. It might be like they're looking at photographs. That's one way that some clients get it. Other clients will say that it's like watching a movie, but it's very clear. They can see everything that's going on, even with the still or the photograph. They can see all the details of that photograph. And other clients will say that they are actually in the scene, which means they are living, breathing in that scene. They can feel the heat from the sun. They can feel the dirt underneath their feet. They can feel the humidity. They can hear water, the creek that's nearby. They can hear the leaves and the birds and stuff like that. So the clarity in a very, very deep theta state is really quite amazing.
And this is universal, Mike. This isn't, I'm listening with the skeptic's attitude a little bit, although I'm not a skeptic at heart. But just in case there are people out there going, oh, this is all ridiculous. It's all coached. People are making this stuff up when they're in these relaxation states, and the hypnotist is only just encouraging them to imagine stuff rather than relate to a setting in which they are a participant. They're not creating this from their imagination. Do you understand where I'm trying to make a distinction?
Oh, yeah. I hear that all the time. Yep. So they're talking about what we refer to as constructed memory. Now, the key to being a good hypnotist or a good hypnotherapist is that you never ask leading questions. Never. What you do is your job is to facilitate the session and to navigate the client through the various levels of trance states. So from beta to alpha down to theta and deep theta. And you work the session so that these images, these feelings emerge from within them. Now, what usually happens, and I explain this to my clients as well before the session starts, that when you read books and you watch documentaries, they like to play up the visual aspects of past lives and between lives. But the truth of the matter is everybody will get some level of visual. I can tell you that. I've never had a client come in my door after over 8 years and say that they didn't have any visuals during a past life. The degree of visuals will vary, but I've never had anybody not have visuals. But the emotional and the feelings, sensory perceptions solidify first. So think of that as like the foundation of a house. So the emotional aspects of what's going on or what they're feeling, the kinesthetics, that comes together first. And then once that establishes, then the visuals start to come. So think of the visuals as like framing the house on top of the foundation that was built, the foundation being kinesthetics and feelings and emotions. And what I do is, and what a good hypnotherapist that does this work will do is, like I said, we don't ever ask leading questions. We ask the clients, what is it that you sense? What is it that you notice? How are you feeling? Questions like that. And then the client explains to us or tells us what it is that they are experiencing. And then we will ask questions, follow-up questions based upon what it is that they give us as far as feedback goes. Now, when people will say, well, yeah, they're just making this stuff up. So the example I use for that is, let's just say you're having that debate with me. I will say, okay, it's 15:06 and you're in Italy, go. And they'll say, well, what do you mean go? Tell me about it. Tell me what Italy was like in 1506. Explain it to me. Tell me about the buildings. Tell me about how people are dressed. Tell me about the transportation. Tell me about the environment, the scenery, your surroundings. Tell me all about that stuff. Well, they'd have to stop and actually try to construct something. Okay. And let's just say they can do that. Let's just say, well, I remember watching the History Channel, about a couple of months ago. So I'll give them this. And then we move to the next scene, the next relevant or significant event in that life. And you have to do it again. And then I move you to another one and another one and another one. Usually 7 to 10 significant events or relevant experiences along the timeline. You'd have to make it up 7 to 10 times. And then here's the kicker. In the end, it all comes together. It comes together as one cohesive storyline with lessons and messages. Well, how did that happen? Did you construct that too? Now, some people will say that, well, perhaps the mind is making up an elaborate metaphor. Maybe it has the ability to do that. Perhaps it's not a past life and it's just a very complex, elaborate metaphor. And I'm like, well, that works too, as far as I'm concerned, because if your mind has that power, then what's happening is your mind is pulling something together for you that's going to benefit you, to help you to better understand your life, to help you to better navigate your life, to be able to allow you to see things in a clearer way. That's okay too. Now, I have done this long enough to honestly believe that my clients are indeed going back to previous lives. But constructed memory, I usually get that from folks that have never had the experience. And one of the ways that I have shut this down in the past is because I don't really argue about it anymore. People they used to want to argue with me when I first got started with this. And then I had a very simple solution to the argument. I would say to them, okay, I tell you what, come see me, free session. I'll conduct a past life regression and let's see where it goes. And after you have the session, then we'll have a discussion. Not one of those people that I ever made that proposal to ever took me up on it. It's almost a way that they want to validate their own belief systems. Maybe it makes them uncomfortable for some reason. And there's a multitude of reasons why it might. It could be religious. It could be that somebody's just a skeptic. Somebody's an atheist.
Mike, I was going to say that the people who walk through your door, who've made the appointment, who've reached out to you and they want a past life session, there's an ingredient of volition there, of willingness, desire. And these people who are just trying to rebut you at a cocktail party or a barbecue are not that kind of person at all. And they don't want to experience what you are describing to them. They are only on the other side of the coin. They want to negate what you are describing to them. So that's one factor that comes in here. That's why they don't come to you and say, all right, I'll take you up on it. Because I think they're afraid of the unknown. But, that's just my guess. So now I'm going to just take us into the number 4 on the list, delta, which is 0.5 to 4 hertz. And that's called the deep sleep wave. And what I'm reading here is it's the slowest of the frequencies. And it's experienced in deep dreamless sleep, in very, very deep transcendental meditation, where your awareness is fully detached, they say. And I'll read, delta is the realm of your unconscious mind and the gateway to the universal mind and the collective unconscious, where information received is otherwise unavailable at the conscious level. So, among many things, it continues, deep sleep is important for the healing process as it's linked with deep healing and regeneration. Hence, not having enough deep sleep is detrimental to your health in more ways than one. So would it be fair to say that in deep sleep, where we are connected to this collective unconscious, this universal mind, and we're receiving information which we don't receive at the conscious level, and maybe some of that information translates into our crazy dreams, which are very unlike reality in many instances, is it fair to say that what you're doing in this assisted theta regression, it kind of can be compared to what we are doing on our own in deep sleep, but the clarity of what we're fielding isn't quite there, because that's the benefit of having a regression with someone assisting you, is that you're going to derive much more clarity from it than you would get from this world that you go into every night, provided you can get deep enough sleep.
Yeah, that's right, Sophia. So when you're in sleep mode, you're in delta and you're getting input, you're experiencing your dreams. And a lot of folks just want to chalk up dreams as just meaningless nonsense, but I'm not from that school. I don't believe that dreams are meaningless and nonsensical, that your dreams are actually a clearinghouse. There's reconciliations taking place. It's also glimpses into your mental and physical health. It's also reaching into the expanded consciousness. And I have clients that will go into very, very deep theta, and they will be touching the delta state. They're very, very deep in trance. And those are the clients that typically have extraordinary past life or between lives experiences. Because when you're in that level of, or that depth of trance, what happens is you're taking all of the noise out of the line, and your connection is very clear. You don't have any interference. So, delta is an important state of trance as well, and it has to do with our sleep, and it has to do with our dreams.
So here, Mike, it says that delta is the frequency in deep dreamless sleep. So would it be correct to say that because you go through these sleep cycles several times during the night, I've heard. And if you go into deep dreamless sleep, then you're collecting this very important input from the universal mind and the collective unconscious. And then you float up into theta, and now you put that together in a dream.
Well, that's what I was talking about before. So I'm trying to keep this, probably I'm oversimplifying it, but you're going to fluctuate between states of trance, levels of trance. That's what I was talking about before. In your waking state, you're going to fluctuate between beta, and you're going to dip into alpha, and you're going to come back into beta and dip into alpha. And it's the same thing at night. You're going to be in delta, and then you'll come up into a theta, then you'll go back into a delta. So there is kind of this wave that you ride at any given time during your life. You're going to go in and out, page in and out of these trance states.
I wonder if it would be worthwhile to conduct an experiment. Imagine if you went through the day with a pocket full of beans or marbles or whatever, and every time you caught yourself in alpha, you would put a marble into the alpha pocket. And you did that every time you became conscious. Oh, I was just in alpha. From beta, I went into alpha. And then it would be interesting to see how many times in the day that you actually realized you were doing that.
It would be many times. It would be when you're reading a book. It would be when you're watching television. What I mentioned before, when you're in the car driving. Let's say a guy goes out and mows the lawn. Many times when you're mowing the lawn, you just focus on mowing the lawn. There could be people going by or walking by your home with dogs and stuff like that, neighbors, and you don't even see them. You don't pay attention to them. It's not because you're being rude. It's because your focus and your concentration is on mowing the lawn, and that's when you're in an alpha state. So if you had that little experiment, you would have a lot of little markers during the course of the day where you became aware that, hey, I was most likely in an alpha state this many times during the day.
Mike, this takes me back to the short time that I took a sublet in New York City. I was young and I had 2 jobs and I had to walk from one job to the other. And even though I was crossing Central Park, it was really stressful. And I would escape back to Westchester County, the country, and I would get in my car and I would drive. And I realized, my God, in New York City, I'm not driving and I really miss it because it's so relaxing. I thought I liked to drive, which I might have. But I think what was happening to me was I was missing being an alpha, because in New York, there was too much stress to go into alpha successfully, except maybe when you're walking through a certain stretch of Central Park and you're not surrounded by a mob like you are when you're walking 3rd Avenue or Amsterdam Avenue. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It was really the loss of alpha opportunities that were bothering me. And so I stopped living in New York.
Oh, could very well be. It could very well be that when you were in alpha, you were kind of lost in your thoughts, and you had time to reflect on things. And so when you're not in your car, because that's what you were doing in your car, perhaps, well, you're doing something differently. And perhaps that opportunity to drop into that alpha state is just not there when you're not in the car. And let's just say you had to walk or take the subway or the bus, different environment. So your mind's going to operate differently.
And maybe if you were used to it, maybe New Yorkers who are veteran, lifelong New Yorkers, they can go into alpha on a bus or a subway, which can happen. The subway is so loud, you're hanging on your strap or your pole and you're in another place. But I wasn't used to that. And I needed the car as the vehicle to take me into a daily alpha on a certain level. And I'm sure there are more. But anyway, that was a little connection that I made. So I felt it was worth bringing up. So, Mike, let's go into these elders and their wisdom and the spirit world. So coming from a little bit of skeptic character, I would say, what elders? What spirit world? What are you talking about?
Well, the spirit world is the unseen world. So when we come here to Earth, we incarnate. This is the physical world. This is the 3D world. But there is an existence outside of this incarnation, of this physical world. We are coming here to have our experiences, to develop our soul's lessons and education through the physical incarnation. So for whatever reason, the creator, source, God, however you want to refer to God, source, or the creator, has determined that the development of a soul is going to require having to incarnate into these physical realities to experience the myriad of experiences, which, could be almost unlimited, to be able to develop the soul. So the soul will develop, understand emotions, and the soul will understand love, hate, good, bad. It'll understand family dynamics. It will understand all kinds of experiences. And all of these experiences that we have as a soul, they're cumulative. And that's how the soul develops. So the more lifetimes that a soul has under its belt, the more experience and soul development it has. And that's why we do it. But this is not home. So Earth is not home. It's home from a physical perspective, but home is back in the spirit world. And the spirit world is a higher plane. It's a higher level plane. It's unseen. And there's been a lot of discussions about trying to explain how it's structured and what it looks like and all that stuff. And if you ask 10 people who claim to know how it all comes together, you'll get 10 different answers. I look at it from the perspective of we have a physical world for the physical incarnation so that the soul can learn. Once this lifetime is over, or any lifetime is over, we pass, we cross over, and we go into the spirit world. And the spirit world is where our guides, our teachers, and where the elders reside. When we're not here, we're there. And it's very different here than it is there. I can tell you that. All of this nonsense that we have in the physical world, all this heaviness, all of this darkness, this negativity doesn't exist in the spirit world. So we come here to be able to experience that negative stuff, that heaviness, because the soul needs to understand what it means for something to be heavy, for something to be dark, for something to be negative, right? Because if you didn't understand that, you'd have no benchmark, you'd have no reference point in which to understand, well, what exactly is love then, if you don't understand what hate is? How do you understand light if you don't understand dark? So you have to have that duality in order to truly understand the dynamics of the development of a soul.
If these spirits, if there's no darkness or negativity in the spirit world, what are the dark spirits that the Satanists are connecting with?
There are darker realms. So when I say that when you go to the spirit world, the vast majority of the souls here, they are going to ascend back home to the spirit world. But there are darker realms. And these are realms in which these souls, for whatever reason, have decided that they're comfortable with, or where they want to operate. The door is always open to them to leave those planes of existence. But if they decide that for some reason they're going to stay there, hang out there for however long, that's their call. So, yeah, so I want to make sure that I don't oversimplify this thing by saying it's just you die and you go, there's only this one great plane of existence. Well, I mean, there is that great plane of existence, but there are other planes where things aren't as happy and there is a heaviness to it. There is a lower vibrational frequency to those planes of existence. A lot of that is what we're seeing today in the physical world here, Sophia. I do subscribe to the yugas, or the different ages or cycles that Earth goes through. So we have the Iron Age, and then there's the Bronze, then there's the Silver, and then there's the Gold. And then after the Gold, boom, you go back into an Iron Age. And right now we're in that Iron Age. And in that Iron Age is when we experience all of this heaviness, all of this darkness. It's like swimming through mud. But that's a cycle and a phase that Earth is going through, and we're going through that as well as part of our learning experience.
You know, this is a lot to contend with, all these ages and all these levels and realms, and it almost makes me want to just concentrate on being here and going to sleep and letting my soul work it out in my sleep and not having to add all of that to my plate right now.
The thing to focus on, Sophia, and I completely understand when you say, oh, you know what, this is a lot of stuff to try to digest, and maybe I'll just see if I can allow my soul to just do it, whatever way it believes it needs to, maybe at night or doing some meditation, whatever. The important takeaway is that we really need to get back to being connected back to spirit. The thing about this age that we're in, it is intended to drive a wedge between humans and their soul and the Creator. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to take out the whole spiritual aspect of this, the whole metaphysical aspect of this, and have you just focus on the physical experience, and a nasty physical experience at that. So what I tell folks, and my clients, my friends, my family, is you need to step away from this dark stuff. It's okay to research it. It's okay to look into it. It's okay to understand it, but do not invest yourself in it or overly invest yourself in it, because you are putting your energy in a place that's very negative and very dark. So understand it, take a step back, focus on the positive, focus on the light, focus on your spirit, do your inner work, and make that connection back to spirit, back to the Creator. That's what you need to do. And that's what I have been doing. It's not easy. It takes discipline to do this, because it's very easy to get knocked off track. It really is. Something can happen in your life. You could read something, you can watch something, and all of a sudden it can send you into a tailspin, and you can wind up stumbling a little bit. But the key is, as soon as you sense yourself stumbling a little bit, is to recognize it and then pull yourself back up and put yourself back on the track. That's what's important. This is a spiritual journey. This is not so much a physical journey. People who invest too much in the trying to correct the physical aspects of this are really banging their head against a wall. Because if we go back to the age, the Iron Age, that is what this age is all about. And it has to go through its natural cycle. I believe we're in the transition period now, going from the Iron into the Bronze. If you talk to Martin, he will tell you that December of 2012 was very important. What that was the end of the age of Pisces and our entrance into the age of Aquarius, which just so happens to coincide with the transition we're going through now from the Iron Age into the Bronze. The key is for us to understand that the physical world is an illusion. It's real only in the sense that you're here, you're experiencing it, but you have to understand that your soul is here to understand that it's an illusion, to understand that there are lies and there is deception, and that there's this concerted effort to separate you from your spiritual part, to separate you from your spirituality, to disconnect you from spirit. That's very, very important. And a lot of people don't focus on that. And Organized religion, unfortunately, does not fill that gap. It doesn't close that gap. And I know a lot of people are listening to this right now are going to be very upset with me, especially if they're part of the institutionalized organized religions. But look, that's been my experience because I was born and raised as a Roman Catholic, and I did spend time in a non-denominational evangelical church for a number of years. So I do see the other side of the coin. I'm not just talking, out of school here. I know what that stuff's about, and I've made the transformation away from that to where I'm at today and doing the work that I'm doing today.
So this experience is dense, and it intends to, or it's designed to drive a wedge between us and our soul. That would be one thing.
Yes.
And our source. Let's just call it source.
Yes.
And have us fail to connect to source and to feel stranded and alone and stressed out and frightened and anxious and menaced. There's a lot of menacing in this existence, and especially now that they've brought all their stupid rules and regulations and uniform commercial code and politically correct, and people are being taught to menace one another. I think the human inclination to cooperation and helpfulness, that's being crumbled deliberately, and we're being pushed into competitiveness and conflict and resentment of each other, right?
Right.
So the experience here is all about those kinds of feelings. And those feelings, if you've got too many of them going on, they will separate you from your source. They will make you forget that you're not this. This existence becomes so hyper real if all you do is concentrate on those feelings and your reactions, that you will forget that you're not here to respond and react. You're actually here to create yourself, right?
That's right. That's right, Sophia. So what is going on today, and it's been going on for a long time, is the breakdown of the mind-body dynamic. Your mind and body have to work together. So a healthy mind and a healthy body is going to result in a happy life. That's just the way it works. So if we take a look at what's going on, the fluoride in the water is going to calcify the pineal gland. We've got GMOs, we've got the aerosol spraying, we've got vaccines, we've got all of the lying, the deception, all of the fear, all of the scarcity that is imposed upon us. It makes people worry. It makes them anxious. It makes them fearful. So what happens is you're trying to survive versus thriving. And when you're in survival mode, you have a level of paralysis. You're not investing in yourself. You're not investing in your inner work. You're not doing what you mentioned, creating. You're not creating. You're not using your imagination. You're not optimizing your life. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get from day to day. And this is what the controllers have done. So they are trying to not just steal your mind, but they're trying to steal your spiritual connectedness back to source. That's the other aspect of this that many people don't focus on.
So, because I'm still looking at this page, this mindvalley.com postings on beta and alpha and theta.
Yeah.
So it says here, the voice of beta can be described as being that nagging inner critic that gets louder the higher you go into beta. So the more you approach the 40 hertz parameter of beta, top parameter, you get that critic getting louder and louder and louder. And hey, what if? And what if this happens? And then you do that. And then what are you going to do? So it says a majority of adults operate at beta. So it's little surprise that stress is today's most common health problem. And I would say that this existence wants you to be in high beta at all times. And that prevents you from coasting naturally into alpha and theta and all the other ranges that give you that security that you're not, that it takes you out of this world. That's the out of this world experience that we get while we're in this world. It's going into those different states constantly and getting inspired and feeling good, because those states make us feel good. High beta doesn't make us feel good. High beta makes us feel anxious. So from what I hear you saying, we want to be able to free ourselves to go between the different states all day long so that we aren't too much of this world. We get to experience the connection to the other worlds.
No, that's right, Sophia. And before the show, we talked about blue light. Now, we know that blue light is very disruptive to sleep patterns. So what do? They flood the population with blue light, whether it be your phone, it be your computer, or whatever. So they definitely want you to spend the vast majority of your time in that beta state. They don't want the natural ebb and flow of going through the various brainwave states. They don't want that. They're always disrupting it. Always disrupting it. How many people today can't even go to sleep? They have to take sleep aids like Ambien in order to nod off. They've got people on psychotropic drugs. We've had all of the Wi-Fi EMF frequencies just flooding the place. This is all interfering with that mind-body dynamic that I referred to before. And this is why, as this particular website says, that it's little surprise that stress is today's most common health problem. And I can validate that because I mentioned earlier that 50% of my practice is spiritual regression, past lives, between lives, and just various types of spiritual journeys under hypnosis. But the other 50% is clinical. So I deal with clients with anxiety, clients with fears, phobias, smoking cessation, weight issues, and so on. And I can't tell you how many clients come in and they're completely stressed out. They don't know whether they're coming or going. And it's creating health issues. They can't sleep. They're gaining weight because of stress, and the list goes on and on and on. So this manipulation of our natural process is definitely in play. And I'm very glad that you made that correlation because that's exactly what's going on.
Well, tell us, Mike, number 5 on the list is gamma. So there's a gamma state above 40 hertz. So high beta, where we don't want to be, is the high 30s. Up to 40. And then above 40, we get gamma, and they call it the insight wave. And they say this range is the most recently discovered, and it's the fastest frequency at above 40 hertz. I guess the fastest natural frequency? I'm not quite sure what that means. So it says, little is known about this state of mind. Initial research shows gamma waves are associated with bursts of insight and high-level information processing. So they call it the insight wave. It's what, I guess, when you have your really climactic aha revelations.
To be honest with you, I don't know a lot about the gamma wave. What I know about it is what you just discussed. And I'm a little leery of it because on one hand, they're saying if you're in beta, which is 14 to 40 hertz, and that is the frequency where stress is predominant. And now they're telling you in gamma above 40 hertz, you have insight. I don't know. So I have not put a lot of thought into it, to be honest with you, Sophia. There's also another terminology which is called super consciousness. That you'll hear that thrown around a lot too, especially in the New Age factions, where they'll talk about super consciousness, and that also is very ill-defined. So I can't really add more to this except that I'm a little leery of it, and to put my conspiracy hat on, I'm thinking perhaps it's something that's being introduced as part of transhumanism.
Well, that could be, Mike. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, I'm a person who goes into hyper beta a lot in order to analyze and critically deconstruct and reconstruct, let's just call it material. I'll come upon something and processing it, thinking about it. I'm super conscious, not in the kind of super consciousness you were talking about, but I'm very, very conscious and working very hard in my brain. And then, boom, I get this connection and I say, oh, so it could be that I got a ping from above the high 30s where my mind was furiously grinding gears, and that could be the gamma, the insight. because it's very brief. You don't stay in that. It just comes, it hits you, and it connects all kinds of dots. And then it's your job to try to retain what you just went through in order to explain to others this ping that you got. So that could be gamma, right?
It could be. I can make an argument that what happened was you actually dipped below into one of the other states, like an alpha state, and that's where it came together, and then it came into your waking state consciousness, and that's how you got the ping. So I can make that argument too, because when you're in the alpha state, that's a state where there's a lot of creativity that takes place. So musicians, as an example, painters, writers, will spend a lot of time in alpha state. And that's where they have those moments, those aha moments. All of a sudden the lyrics come together, or all of a sudden the right chord progression comes together. And then it rises up into your beta or your conscious waking state, and you apply it. So I can make that argument too. So I don't know enough to be able to say whether it was gamma or if the person dipped into alpha and went back up into beta.
Well, Mike, let's connect all this to the Earth's natural frequency range, which we've heard of as the Schumann resonances.
Yeah.
And it also describes the Earth's electromagnetic field. And the Schumann resonances range from 0 hertz to 40 hertz, which I find very interesting given this brainwave lineup here. And most of the time, it's between 7 and 12 hertz. So that would be, on this chart, the alpha range, 7 to 12, that's 7.5 to 14. And it only peaks. Now we're talking pure electrophysics of the Earth. The frequencies of the Earth peak in nature occasionally, for instance, in certain equatorial thunderstorms, and they go as high as 30 to 40 hertz. They peak at 40. They don't get higher than that. And what we've done is we've introduced electrification into our world, where we've got, houses that are wired at 50 and 60 hertz. And then we've got all these devices running at higher hertz, for instance, the telecom devices that we use. And it's difficult for me to relate all this to the chart here, the brain waves. But I'm guessing that the brain waves match the Earth's frequencies. They're correlated to the Earth's frequencies. And our brains should not be battered and banged with radio frequencies, for instance, which are much, much higher. So do you want to talk about these states in relation to the Earth's frequencies? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I can say that there's a reason why we have the Schumann resonance and why the Earth is at a certain frequency. And we have to, obviously, this is home for us in the physical world. So we have to have this synergy. We have to be able to resonate with Mother Earth. To me, it seems very natural and very obvious that that's the way it should be connected together. Humans, other life, and Earth. So the disruption of those frequencies through the EMFs and the Wi-Fi and the 5G technology and all this other stuff has been rolled out or is going to be rolled out is very disruptive to the natural order. But trying to get people to understand that is very difficult because, first of all, most people don't even know that Earth has a frequency. They don't know anything about the Schumann resonance. And most people have no idea about where they're supposed to be brainwave-wise and how they're supposed to function from a frequency perspective. So I guess, to sum it up would be, it makes perfect sense to me that the Earth is where we are at, or we are at where the Earth is at, however way you want to look at it. And it's abnormal what they're doing with frequencies in our environment. Again, it goes toward what I was saying before. It's the breaking down of the mind-body dynamic. That this is what's at play, right? So it's just another example, Sophia, of where they're chipping away. In one of the shows, the glyphosate show, we said that their understanding of humans, how we're connected, how we're wired, our DNA, all this stuff is far more advanced than they will ever come clean with, and far more advanced than most people would even begin to even fathom. And so this is another example, in my view, of another place where they have a complete and total understanding of this synergy that's supposed to be in place between humans and Mother Earth, and they're disrupting it. So, just another area where things have gone afoul.
Mike, let me throw in a suggestion then, because, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my interview with Marcia Singer. Did you?
Not yet, no.
Oh, you were supposed to. All right. In that show, Marcia mentioned in her description, it was her deep grief over something that was a prolonged state of despair and grief. And she just succumbed to it. She yielded to it. And she got so noodle-like, just giving up, a bowl of jelly. That's what I mean when I say noodle-like, spaghetti, weak, that she finally felt secure. She felt like she was being held. There was some security around her. And she then derived that we could actually reach a place of security. And so as you're talking about this natural world where all is well in that frequency range, Marcia would then say, "May I be safe." When she went into the jelly state, she would finally say, "May I be safe." And that was a pronouncement. It wasn't asking something or someone for permission to be safe. It was a pronouncement. May I be safe. May I be secure. May I be well. And she later added the term benediction. It became the descriptor of such a statement. You pronounce a benediction upon yourself. Bene, in etymology of language, is good. In Latin, and diction is to speak, to say. So what you're saying, good. And I think since I heard that, it really resonated with me, and I grabbed it and I started telling other people about it, and everybody likes it, that we have the capacity to reset and to bring ourselves back into that 0 to 40 hertz range by these benedictions, saying, "May I be safe. May I be well. May this be safe for me." And every time you say that, you are taking yourself back into what is well and good for you. And interestingly, we pronounce benedictions for each other all the time. We say, "Have a nice day. Drive safely. Take care. God bless. Bless you," when you thank somebody. And so what you're doing is we're very accustomed to giving benediction out in all directions, but we're not accustomed to placing it upon ourselves. And that itself creates a good space around you. It's your own declaration and avowal of being well, and you must do it, in my opinion.
You do have to do it, and the intent is very important. So where most people fall short is that they will say these things, whether they say it to somebody else or whether they are bringing it inward into them, they lack intention. You just can't say things and expect something's going to happen. You have to have intention. So it's very important that when you do have these benedictions, or some people might refer to them maybe as an affirmation or even a mantra, is you have to internalize it. You have to have intention. You have to focus on it and concentrate on it, and you have to embrace it. That's what has to happen. And when you do that, and when you do that on a consistent basis, things will change in your life for the positive. That's what will happen. See, the controllers have us focused on the negative, and people are putting intention and embracing the negative. And what's happened? Well, their reality is manifesting because of that. Our reality, the one that we would prefer to have, is not. Why is that? Because we're embracing their stuff more than our own stuff. That's why it's happening.
And that's why I say, Mike, that you must begin to pronounce benedictions upon yourself, even if all you're doing is saying it. Because what you just said is that you have to have the intention. You have to mean it. I think a lot of people are very weak in that department. They doubt their own intention. They doubt the power of their intention. But if they can start by saying, "May I be well," and understand that they are granting that state upon themselves. They're not asking. They're not going, "Daddy, may I be well?" Not asking the school principal, "May I go to the bathroom now?" They are actually making a pronouncement. And if that's all they're doing, that's where it begins. Because from there, the intention can be pulled into it.
What the controllers, again, Sophia, what they have done is they have taken the empowerment away from humanity, and they want humans not to believe and to understand or understand, as Martin would say, that we have this power and that we have this ability to make a better life and to change things and make things just better in general. Right? So again, it goes back to breaking down the mind-body dynamic. It's another aspect of that. Disempowering you, making you believe that stuff that we're talking about right now is just nonsense. This is just nonsense. This is woo-woo stuff. This is new age mumbo jumbo. This is what they'll tell you. But the thing is, who created the new age mumbo jumbo in order to muddy the waters even more? Well, it was the controllers through Tavistock and the Esalen Institute plays a big part in this, right? So I don't want to digress too much, but the point I'm trying to make is that they have covered so many bases in order to make things very confusing and to make people think that they don't have any power and that things are hopeless and that they have to rely on other people. They have to rely on authority, quote unquote authority, in order to get through their day, in order to have success, in order to be happy. And nothing can be further from the truth. I don't know how we break the code, to be honest with you. I think all we can do is we have to do our own inner work. We have to be healthy first before we can reach out and try to help other people. And when we do reach out to try to help other people, it has to be done in a way that's very organic and very natural. So what that means is people that will listen and the message resonates, they will begin to embrace it and they will begin to understand and their life will begin to become better. They'll have a better life. And then we're going to have a whole bunch of other people that are just going to walk away from this stuff. And again, they're just going to think that this is just a bunch of nonsense. And there's other ways that they can be happy, like going out and buying a flat screen TV.
Mike, I think it starts with the word. I mean, there is that famous biblical line, in the beginning was the word, right?
Right.
And if that's the only place we have to start, we can pronounce benediction upon ourselves, reset ourselves, puncture their stuff that they're throwing at us. They envelop us with their menacing rules, regulations, threats, which are everywhere. I mean, whether you think about them or not, there's some kind of, you have to be corralled. You feel corralled all the time. Now that we live in this kind of world. When you're born, you have to be pulled into this kind of slavery. And that's what your socialization process is about. And we forget to create benedictions about and for ourselves. So that's where I'm coming from. It's a very powerful thing to say that about yourself on a regular basis throughout the day.
I agree 100% that you do have to do these things for yourself and you do have to say these things. I absolutely agree. Again, the problem is that most people don't believe that the words have any power.
We don't care about those people, Mike. We are speaking to people who are listening to us, who are interested in figuring out their own techniques to puncture the oppression so that they can free themselves and they can do what it is they dream of doing and they were born to do. You know, I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday, I was at the pool and there was a diving group. It was a small children all jumping off the two heights of diving boards. So there's a low board that's like 3.5 feet, and then there's the high dive. I don't know how tall that thing is. It's 10, 11, 12 feet something. And there was this little girl, and she was standing on the high diving board, and her name was Kiki, and all the other little girls were screaming, "Go, Kiki, go, go!" And I could tell this was Kiki's first time on the high dive, and she was terrified. And this encouragement she was getting from her friends, "Go, Kiki, go, go, Kiki, just do it, go, go." And they were all screaming and jumping up and down and trying to get her to jump off the high dive. And she was cowering. And you could see what was going through her head. "No, I can't. And in the end, she turned around and she climbed off it. And I thought, oh, Kiki, jump, you know? And I put myself in her shoes. And as I was watching her, I was thinking, if you had jumped, you would be free. Because what's constraining you is your fear. I mean, all these other kids are jumping off this high dive board, but you're not, because you're hemmed in by this fear, by this perception. So I actually went over to her and I told her that. And I said, look, I said, the other kids do it. You can do it too. And you would be free if you did this. You would be freeing yourself if you jumped. Because what you're not free of is the fear. And she looked at me and she said, thank you. And then the instructor, she was actually a supervisor at the pool, she said to me, she has 8 more weeks. I said, what are you talking about? She said, this is a class. This was her first time that she even went off the 3-foot board. So no wonder she was scared of the 11-foot board. And I explained to the instructor, the supervisor, that, I told her, just, that's your freedom, going off that board. And someday you will do it. Next time you will do it. And that's what we're held back with. We're held back with the fear, and once we jump into the fear and through it, then we're free. So anyway, that was my little story from yesterday.
That's a great story. And pushing through fear is one of the most important things that anyone can do. And that's something, Sophia, that I deal with a lot in my practice, in particular on the clinical side. Fears get in the way. Fears keep people from excelling. Fear keeps people from optimizing their lives. What fear does is it paralyzes people. It instills self-sabotage. People will actually sabotage themselves in order to not be successful. Why? Because there might be a fear of actually being successful. I've never been successful before. I don't even know what that feels like. But I do know what it feels like to be fearful, so I'll just stay here. So it's almost like they land in a comfort zone that is unhealthy. So granted, it is completely unhealthy. So your advice to that little girl was great. Just push through it. Push through it, because once you do it, it's liberating. It's freedom. You've broken through the wall. And that's a very, very important piece for anybody who's listening to this, because we're surrounded by fear. They just deluge us with fear. And once you can push through it, you're going to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's going to be a bright light. And it's going to be very beneficial to your life going forward, because then you're going to see, well, if I push through the fear on that particular topic or that issue, then I'm going to push through it here. And before you know it, you're breaking all these walls down. And then you'll be in a better place.
Yeah, and actually I didn't use the word fear with her more than once or twice. I think I was trying to tell her, when you jump, you're free. And it's the freedom that you're jumping with.
Good, yep.
Yeah, because I could feel it. If she just jumped, I was looking at her, she would be free. She would be in the air, and it's just that 1 second, but you could see how powerful the mind was, and it just kept her cowering, and her little feet were kind of backing up, and then she backed off the board and went down the ladder, and the class was over, but she has 8 more weeks, just like the supervisor said. And hopefully she'll jump next time or the time after that, and she'll be thinking about this. I'm really free and I can jump.
Yep. Also her fear of heights or jumping off, not to circle back to past lives, but could be something that she experienced in a past life where something happened that where there was some kind of height issue or jumping off something where maybe she got hurt or she died, and she carried that over. I call that flow through from one life into another life. Or it could also be something in her current life. How old was she about? Was she very young?
8 or 9.
8 or 9. Okay. So it could be something in this life where something happened. Here's an example, right? Here's something that this actually came out through a client session going back a few years ago. I had a client that was very scared of heights, and they couldn't figure out why. They just couldn't figure out why. So I regressed them back. And what happened was they were in a mall, and it was one of those malls that has the 2 levels. And the second level had a fence, but it was glass all around the second level, and you were able to look down into the atrium area of the mall. So what happened was, this was a little girl, not in the chair, it was a woman, but when she was a little girl, she was looking through that glass and watching what was taking place down in the atrium at the first level of the mall. And her little brother, thinking it was funny, what did he do? He shoved her into the glass. And so that created trauma. And what ran through her head was, oh my God, all she saw was she was going to fall 20, 25 feet, whatever it is. So I'm just bringing that up. I know it's kind of like out of left field, but my point being is that the fears that people have to do with events that took place in their life. And many times they don't even, in their conscious state, realize or understand what happened in the past. It's suppressed. And so they go about their life being fearful or concerned about something or reacting and behaving a certain way that is undesirable, not understanding why. So in the case of that little girl being 8 or 9, there could be something like that. It could be something that happened previously when she was younger, or it could go back into a past life as well.
Right. In her case, I truly think she just went off the 3.5-foot board.
Yeah.
And now she was encouraged to climb on the really high one, and she wasn't ready. That's all.
Yeah, it could be that too.
It seemed that could be the simple explanation. But
yeah.
You're right. There are all kinds of things that have lined up in our lives that we've forgotten about or repressed that affect us on a daily basis. And then there's that huge host of stuff that could have happened in past lives. Well, Mike, we're coming upon my usual 1 hour and 15, which seems to be a good ending point for our show. So thank you again.
All right, Sophia, thank you.
Hello, friends. We're waking up to the dangers of wireless radiation emitted by cell phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi, and our devices that use it. But many people complain that they can't get along without a cell phone. So I designed a simple cell phone shielding case lined with a silver mesh fabric that creates a barrier between your body and the phone when you keep it in this little pouch. A good way to protect your body from direct penetration by wireless microwaves, and with a handy pocket for earbuds. You don't want that phone close to your body or head. My cases are custom made to order, and there are all kinds of fabrics, including ultra suede. Please visit avatarproducts.com and click on the side menu link for the cell phone shielding page. Once you start using a shielding pouch, you become much more aware that your phone is not a toy, not even a friend, but merely a modern utility. Understand that radio frequency microwaves have been found by multiple independent, non-industry funded studies to be unsafe for human health. This is Sophia Smallstorm with avatarproducts.com.